So we've been sharing more about how you could help your daughters to be happy and have a normal life. This session, I want to focus on more about you, about what you want to happen, how you want to feel.
Okay. Well, I guess I want the same things for myself as I do for my daughters.
That's great. It's good that you value your daughters, and I can tell that they are an amazing source of strength for you. But you also feel it's important to value yourself as well.
Yes, my family is very important.
Good. In your last session, you talked a lot about how your trauma is still affecting your life today and about how you feel that Philip and Nancy still have control over you in many ways. This week, I want to focus on some coping skills to help you evaluate these controlling feelings you have.
Yes, still even today, I'm not used to doing many things. I can't go out in public without major anxiety. I'm scared of what people will do. I constantly think about all of the experiences that I missed out on because of the years that I was held captive. I often feel like I'm still experiencing the trauma in real time.
And those are valid feelings. Now, tell me more about what happens when you start to feel anxious or if you feel that you're still in the Garridos' backyard.
So a lot of the times I start to feel anxious when I'm out in public. Aside from large crowds scaring me, I see things that remind me of captivity, or I hear sounds that remind me of the backyard. For example, the simple sound of hearing a door lock, especially if I'm in the room that's being locked or in a room where a door is being closed. It reminds me of the first night that I was taken and hearing that shed door lock for the very first time. I start getting nervous and I get sweaty. I start to feel closed in. Um, the locking sound isn't the only thing that triggers me. It can be very difficult to avoid all of the triggers. So um, I often find it easier to just stay at home or avoid places where I know there will be more than a few people. Um, Often, when I do leave, I come home earlier than I intended.
What we're going to do now is map out what you just told me in something called a cognitive triangle. This can help you analyze your thought pattern since it gets it out of your head onto a piece of paper. So on the top right here are your thoughts. On the bottom over here are your behaviors. Not your behaviors, your feelings and emotions. Over here are your behaviors. So your behaviors influence your thoughts, which influence your feelings and emotions, which influence your behaviors, and so on and so forth. So the behaviors in the scenario you just told me are you going out in public or you're in a crowded room. You start to feel, you think, oh, this reminds me of captivity, or this reminds me of a certain scenario that happened. And then you start to feel anxious. You said you start sweating. And that influences your behaviors to either go home earlier or not even go out in the first place. So whenever that happens, whenever you go home early or don't even go out, what do you think about that?
I feel ashamed that I can't do stuff that a normal person in their mid 30s can do with ease. I also feel as if Philip and Nancy are still exerting control over me. Whenever I have these experiences, I feel like all of the work that I've put into myself just disappears.
And what I want you to do now is we're going to do a little bit of an imagery exercise. So close your eyes. Imagine that you're in your car driving around your neighborhood. You see a coffee shop you want to go into, and so you go in. It's more crowded than you thought it would be, though. What's your first thought?
Well, I get worried
What makes you want to get worried?
because there's lots of people in here. What if someone is here and they want to hurt me?
Okay, that's called an automatic thought. It links your past experiences with your current moment. So now close your eyes again. I want you to imagine that you are in this coffee shop, but you know that no one is going to hurt you. Let's keep this feeling of relaxation going when we're walking around and ordering. So you're relaxing, you know that you are fine. These people around you are customers and you are perfectly okay. If you feel comfortable, open your eyes and look around. Everything is fine and you've learned how to relax. This is a coping skill.
Well, great. I feel fine right now. I just
Good.
have to remember to do this whenever I go out again.
Good. So you do think that you can apply this in your everyday life now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said that when you're in the middle of an anxiety attack, you feel as if all the work that you have put into yourself over the years just disappears. What's the evidence that you have of this?
Well, I guess my evidence is that I still have all of these flashbacks.
And that's normal. I mean, not normal, but it's a typical reaction due to your past experiences. That will get better as you learn new coping skills.
Okay. Yeah, I would like that very much. I would love to be able to do normal things um, like that without freaking out. Like I said earlier, it's not pleasant. And on top of all the negative stuff, I feel like it's still giving control over to Philip and Nancy.
Okay, so let's take that control away from them and give it back to you. What we're going to do now is another exercise. It's called a subjective unit of distress. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this can help with something called systematic desensitization. That's something we'll go over in a little bit after we construct this SUD. So right now, I want you to think about something that, no anxiety at all, you're completely relaxed. What is that scenario?
Well, I mean, staying at home alone with my daughters and my mother watching a good TV show.
Okay, what is something that puts you at about 25%?
Driving to the park and spending some time there.
Okay, now think a little bit more intensely. What about a 50% anxiety level?
I would have to say walking around my neighborhood. After all, I was abducted doing just that.
That's completely understandable. Okay, so now what is something that at this current moment in time is completely intolerable to you, just kind of sets your levels off to, 100%?
Well, I've thought about this a lot. I would have to say for sure taking my daughters to college visits. They're in high school and they'll be visiting college soon. This puts me at a 100 for a lot of reasons. Um, it will require me to be away from home. It'll require me to be in places where there's a lot of foot traffic and will eventually require me to be away from my daughters. And then to trust that the people they're with won't hurt them.
Okay, so this is the SUD we just constructed. At 0%, you said staying home with your family, kind of relaxing. At 25%, you said kind of driving around your neighborhood, maybe going to a park where there's some other people, but there's still a lot of space around between you and those other people. At 50%, you said walking around your neighborhood, because that's what happened whenever you were abducted, is you were just, going to school, walking around your neighborhood. And then you said 100% all the way at the top would be, visiting colleges with your daughters where there's a ton of foot traffic. And then eventually saying goodbye to your daughters as you send them off to college. So back to the systematic desensitization. This is something in cognitive behavioral therapy where we work on doing things that only make you a little bit anxious. And then as those things no longer make you anxious, we go up to the next thing. The goal of this is it eventually allows you to do something that, you never thought you would be able to do. Do you feel comfortable doing that with this SUD that we just constructed together?
Yeah, I think so. If we do it in baby steps, then yeah, I think I could do that.
Okay. We will absolutely be doing it in baby steps. We wouldn't want to do something that would make you too uncomfortable. So between now and our next session next month, I want you to work on making your 25% down at your 0%. And so I want you to do this by taking baby steps. So maybe instead of immediately going to the park, you can just drive around the block a couple of times, see how that makes you feel. After you do that, I want you to write what you did down and how it made you feel in this journal that I'm going to give you on your way out. So, just keep doing that, write down how you feel about it, and then we can go over that at our next session. Something else I want you to do is if you catch yourself having an irrational thought, like you told me earlier, sometimes when you're out, you think people want to hurt you, write that down. And when you get home, look back at those thoughts and think, what is a more rational explanation? This is something called in cognitive behavioral therapy, record, rationalize, and replace. It can help start to change your automatic thoughts that you have. And so we're going to do this for the next month, see how we go, talk about it at our next session, and hopefully use this process to work your way up your side to reduce your anxiety levels.